All right, and we are live. Hi, this is Piper Report with Holly Seeliger once again. Holly, hi.
Hey Piper, thanks for having me on your channel.
Oh yeah, always fun. So, let's see if anyone is here yet. Probably not. I know Hard Bastard is doing a stream right now as well. I'm going to tweet the link out.
When is he not doing a live show?
Yeah,
No.
right? Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that every time I go on YouTube, Hard Bastard is live right now. Right now.
He's a machine.
Yeah. Kind of feel bad for the cameraman because he must call it.
I know.
Yeah, Winston Smith, I think that's the other guy.
Yeah, those guys are busy.
Uh-huh.
I'll share it too.
Yeah, probably good because I don't get many people on live streams. It's all you.
Let's see. We are live, everyone.
Oops.
So you're starting up a podcast or radio show?
Yeah, I did the first episode the other day. I kind of want to do video, but I don't know. I thought this new position at my job would allow me more time, but it doesn't at all. It's more of a headache if anything.
No.
But
yeah, I just got offered a job for the summer, and I'm like, okay, like that could be good, but I'm also like, do I want to handle like 3 jobs right now? Like
yeah,
I count this channel stuff as a job too, so it's like, all right, we'll see how that goes.
that would be nice. I would like to do that.
Yeah. It can be a struggle, as we all know, though. You know, nothing's guaranteed. So I've got a maker support started up, and I got a few donations on there, but now my channel or whatever is having problems like paying out the money, so now it's stuck on the site, so that doesn't do me any good, or my donors. So hey, BB.
All right, well, since it's not just us two, I don't feel that bad. We can get started.
Yeah.
We have one guest to watch us.
Yeah.
All righty. So for those in the chat, we're going to go over the indictment that happened today. I'm going to pull it up on screen share, read a little bit. I kind of browsed through it just lackadaisically a little bit ago. So then I wrote some of the key ones down. I'll read it and then we'll discuss. And I think Holly and I, we both covered this in the past a few times already. So not just indictment, but what the indictment says. So it should be easy for us to talk about. But all right, well. Let me see if I remember how to do screen share. It's been a while. I guess the option that says screen share, huh? All right. So basically, there are 8 counts, and the first one's the main one because the first one is, it basically is trolling. They're trying to make an indictment for trolling, and I don't understand how that is, but we'll start with number 28. Let's see, we're at 28 right here. So basically, count 1 was conspiracy to defraud the United States. Number 28. The conspiracy had as its object impairing, obstructing, and defeating the lawful government functions of the U.S. by dishonest means in order to enable the defendants to interfere with U.S. political and electoral processes, including the 2016 U.S. presidential election. So here's then basically how they did it. Number 29, starting at least in or around 2014, now that's key, that date, 2014, defendants and their co-conspirators began to track and study groups on U.S. social media sites dedicated to U.S. politics and social issues. In order to gauge the performance of various groups on social media sites, the organization tracked certain metrics like the group size, the frequency of content placed by the group, and the level of audience engagement with that content, such as the average number of comments or responses to a post. So basically, that 2014, what that tells me is that happened before the election, before Trump even decided to run for the election. So I don't think you can make the argument that the Russian attempting to hack the election was a direct consequence of Donald Trump running in the election. And as we'll see later in this indictment, they supported Bernie Sanders as well. It wasn't just Trump, but I guess I've only read 2 paragraphs so far, but Holly, what do you think of it so far?
So it looks like it's the troll farms that we've heard about. And yeah, you said going back to 2014. So this would have been when Obama was still in office. So I don't know if they were like preempting the next election. You know, no one had really come out over like who was going to be running. And for Democrats or Republicans, things were still really up in the air during that time. And then also, I don't know if this continues to talk about, you know, if there were protests that were put together by these groups, or, you know, how exactly they were meddling in the elections.
Yeah, and that's funny you bring it up, protests, because I'm sure you've heard of David Brock and obviously George Soros. Well, David Brock, he is the leader of Media Matters, and their whole point of Media Matters was actually to basically sabotage Trump and Bernie Sanders. Media Matters actually hired, I think it was 1,000 bots to go on websites, news websites, and denounce Bernie Sanders and support Hillary Clinton. So I think there is a direct correlation to what these Russian nationalists are being accused of and the actions of David Brock.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, David Brock. And if you want to talk about, you know, foreign governments or foreign individuals meddling in our elections, like you said, George Soros, I mean, he dumps in hundreds of thousands of dollars into local elections here in the United States. And that is direct meddling in our elections. So it's interesting that we've got like these 13 people who are being indicted by Mueller. I don't know if they're going to try to tie it in with Trump. They're saying that a lot of those Russian troll farms and Russian groups were supporting Bernie Sanders. So I don't know if he's going to be tied in with this somehow. It's very confusing.
Yeah. And actually, my next note here is for number 31 and 32. So we will go over that quickly because it actually ties in with David Brock and George Soros quite well. So 31. In order to collect additional intelligence, defendants and their co-conspirators posed as U.S. persons and contacted U.S. political and social activists. For example, starting in or around June 2016, defendants and their co-conspirators posing online as U.S. persons communicated with a real U.S. person affiliated with a Texas-based grassroots organization. During the exchange, defendants and their co-conspirators learned from the real U.S. person that they should focus their activities on purple states like Colorado, Virginia, and Florida. After that exchange, defendants and their co-conspirators commonly referred to targeting purple states in directing their efforts. Defendants and their co-conspirators, through fraud and deceit, created hundreds of social media accounts and used them to develop certain fictitious U.S. personas into leaders of public opinion in the U.S. I think number 32 is probably the most significant one because, like I just kind of mentioned earlier, that's exactly what David Brock did against Bernie Sanders. He created literally hundreds of social media accounts to try to denounce Bernie Sanders and support Hillary Clinton at the same time.
Wow, that's a good point. Yeah, I haven't really seen, I've followed up, you know, this just broke like a few hours ago. So, you know, we were kind of like debating like, okay, what are we going to talk about tonight? And then like this hit. And so I've been trying to follow what's been going on with this story. And it'll be interesting to see how it's going to be spun by all the mainstream news. And like, depending on if it's CNN or MSNBC or Fox, you know, already I've been looking up, it says like Mueller is going to go after Trump for this somehow, even though, like you said, it appears to have started way back in 2014. I'm wondering also if this seems to tie in with groups like Black Lives Matter, who might have been tied in, you know, with if troll farms had gotten involved with them, because that's kind of what was going on way back in 2014. So we'll have to do some research into what was going on in 2014, I guess.
Yeah. And yeah, for everyone in the chat, I do apologize. I did kind of put I kind of covered this last like hour. I was studying up on it, and Holly was kind of in the dark about it. So you're gonna have to just deal with me talking for a little bit. But yeah, like we actually had some of the other topics we were going to discuss, like CNN's ratings dropping and Benjamin Netanyahu might be indicted, which was kind of interesting. Maybe if we have time later, we'll jump on that a little bit. But yeah, okay, moving on. So, number 34. Defendants and their co-conspirators also created thematic group pages on social media sites, particularly on social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram. Organization-controlled pages addressed a range of issues, including immigration, with group names including secured borders, the Black Lives Matter movement, which group names including Blacktivists, religion, with group names including United Muslims of America and Army of Jesus, and certain geographic regions within the U.S., with group names including South United and Heart of Texas. By 2016, the size of many organization-controlled groups had grown to hundreds of thousands of online followers. And I think what I want to stress on this is that that is not illegal to do. Fake news and the dissemination of fake news is not a crime. It's wrong. I mean, one could argue it's not ethical, but it's not a crime. And in this indictment, they're using that as the basis to say it is a crime.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like, okay, so I'm wondering how this will be spun in the future. I mean, are people going to start to look more critically at some of these groups like United Muslims of America, Army of Jesus? I think I saw there was like a funny website that had like a list of all the silly memes that were connected to the Russian troll farm. I guess the troll farm called the Internet Research Agency. And I saw a list. It was like some really ridiculous memes. You know, I was like, okay, so they're saying that these memes swayed the election. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, and it's actually pretty funny because if you think about it, all the people that said, you know, Russia was responsible for a Trump victory. My response to that is, okay, let's try to dissect that. Do you honestly believe that Russia propaganda turned Wisconsin and Pennsylvania blue, two states that, or Wisconsin and Michigan blue, two states that have been, turned Wisconsin and Michigan red, two states that have been blue for the last 28 years? And I think that their answer is no, obviously. So I think their argument breaks down there. All right, now this one is a crime. 39 to 41. To hide their Russian identities and organization affiliation, defendants and their co-conspirators, particularly Polozov and blah, 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 IT department, purchased space on computer servers located inside the U.S. in order to set up virtual private networks, VPNs. Defendants and their co-conspirators connected from Russia to the U.S. based infrastructure by the way of these VPNs and conducted activity inside the U.S., including accessing online social media accounts, opening new accounts, and communicating with real U.S. persons, while masking the Russian origin and control of the activity. Defendants and their co-conspirators also registered and controlled hundreds of web-based email accounts hosted by U.S. email providers under false names so as to appear to be U.S. persons and groups. From these accounts, defendants and their co-conspirators registered or linked to online social media accounts in order to monitor them, posed as U.S. persons when requesting assistance from real U.S. persons, contacted media outlets in order to promote activities inside the U.S., and conducted operations such as before. Okay, yeah, I read the wrong one. 41 is with a crime, and U.S. is stolen identities. So, and I think it is important to actually clarify that, is that even though the first count is, I mean, not a crime, obviously, it's mostly First Amendment stuff, it's fake news, it shouldn't be considered a crime. There is criminal behavior actually in it, and stolen identities, I mean, theft. It's so, there should have been an indictment, but the conspiracy to defraud the United States, I think that's that falls short.
I mean, if you think about it, like how often does the United States meddle in other people's elections? Like, it's kind of like constant. If we don't do it like through subversion or like not to get too deep, but our shadow organizations, our troll farms, or even if you want to look into something like the CIA or Project Gladio, or we'll use subversion, or we'll just like go out and just bomb people. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of strange.
Well, I mean, the base of the U.S. was involved in like setting up the election in Honduras. We know for a fact that the U.S. tries to hack Russian elections. We know the U.S. tries to hack China elections. It's almost like the U.S., or rather the U.S. government, is trying to portray themselves as this beacon of moral righteousness, this beacon of hope, this paragon of goodness, when we do what every other country does in the world. And we probably do it a lot better since we spend a lot more on our military and our computer cyber hacking logistics, essentially. So it is kind of funny that we are looking at Russia as the big bad wolves for doing exactly what we do and what we have been doing for decades.
Do you think Mueller's playing a game with this or something?
I don't know. I don't trust him at all, because the very first thing, though, that kind of really irritates me is when Mueller started investigation, they right away instituted a grand jury, and the grand jury is essential for actually recommending an indictment. James Comey didn't even want to talk to a grand jury. I think because if he did, or if he would have set one up, he would have known that the grand jury would have came back with a recommendation for an indictment of Hillary Clinton, and he could not let that happen. Nor could his cronies in the FBI, like Peter Strzok and Bruce Orr, who's in the DOJ. But it's funny because the Russians did actually interfere in the election, but it wasn't for Donald Trump. It was for Hillary Clinton. The DNC paid them.
Oh, wow. I haven't even thought about that. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I have coming up here on number 51. That's going to be a little bit yet, but I'll just say it here. It's basically the Podesta brothers, how like they didn't register as foreign agents for I forgot what country, and they're using that registering as foreign agents as one of the facets that was confirmation that these 13 Russians tried to defraud the United States, conspiracy to defraud the U.S., which I find kind of laughable. Alrighty. Number 43, and this one brings in Bernie Sanders now. I think this is probably the most important one in the whole thing. By 2016, defendants and their co-conspirators used their fictitious online personas to interfere with the 2016 U.S. presidential election. They engaged in operations primarily intended to communicate derogatory information about Hillary Clinton, to denigrate other candidates such as Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, and to support Bernie Sanders and then candidate Donald Trump. On or about February 10th, 2016, one day after my birthday, by the way. Anyways, defendants and their co-conspirators internally circulated an outline of themes for future content to be posted to organization-controlled social media accounts. Okay, that one's kind of relevant. Number 43 was just the important one. To support Bernie Sanders and then candidate Donald Trump, which basically clarifies that this wasn't attempted collusion for Donald Trump. This wasn't to get Donald Trump reelected. This was just to stir up controversy in the U.S. Because when it comes down to it, the Russians are just like the U.S. We like to screw shit up in other countries. We like to see other countries chasing their tails around, trying to fix their broken political and economic systems. I mean, it's basically class warfare. It's just, I guess you could say class warfare on a global scale.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good way to put it. And this whole thing reminds me of like, okay, they want to denigrate candidates such as Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and support Bernie Sanders and then candidate Donald Trump. It reminds me of like the DNC memo that said like, we need to promote Trump and, fringe candidates like Ben Carson as Pied Piper candidates. in order to, hopefully prop up Hillary Clinton. I mean, that's basically the same game plan that the Democrats had.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And right here, too, it's more confirmation. 46A I have. On or about October 16th, 2016, defendants and their co-conspirators used the organization-controlled Instagram account, Woke Blacks, to post the following message. Particular hype and hatred for Trump is misleading the people and forcing blacks to vote Hillary. We cannot resort to the lesser of two devils. Then we'd surely be better off without voting at all. Wait, that wasn't it. It says vote for a third part. Here, never mind. In or around the latter half of 2016, defendants and their co-conspirators, through their controlled personas, began to encourage U.S. minority groups not to vote in 2016 U.S. presidential election or to vote for a third-party U.S. presidential candidate.
Oh.
i.e. Jill Stein or doofus Gary Johnson.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's just more confirmation of like what we already know. But I turned to like CNN and MSNBC a little bit. I wanted to kind of see their reaction to this. And all I saw basically was this is confirmation that Robert Mueller is onto something and Donald Trump is going to be responsible. Donald Trump is a bad person. His administration has a nefarious agenda. It's just, I don't know. It's more of the same, but they're really harping on it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering like how high up these 13 people are. Like it'll be interesting to continue to do some research on like, are these people like super high up in the Kremlin, or are they just, like a low level like troll farmers and people that Russia's okay with, being thrown under the bus, like if it's some sort of compromise. And it's also strange because it seems like Mueller is like accusing the Russians and Trump of everything that the Democrats were doing the entire 2016 election. So they're kind of like exposing their own game plan in a way. It's really weird.
Yeah, right. And I read in the chat here, Kevin wrote, yes, Dan, how many dead people voted? And it's funny because on 47C, it basically says that the Russians created propaganda that there was voter fraud in Broward County. Well, I actually covered that back during the election, and that wasn't propaganda. That's actually true. You can see the affidavit, actually. A woman named Chelsea Smith filed an affidavit that the Broward County officials were basically, I can't remember exactly what they were doing, but they were trying to administer voter fraud. Now, there was an investigation. Investigations showed that Chelsea Smith was wrong about it, whether or not, I mean, it was false investigation or whatnot. But either way, I think it does, I don't know, this indictment appears to have that wrong, at least, that it wasn't propaganda. It actually did happen, unless they're referring to another time where there was propaganda to try to indicate voter fraud and it wasn't true.
I'm just so confused by all of this, like I'm wondering if we're really supposed to believe that like some Instagram accounts and Facebook pages really were enough to push the election a certain way. If this is going to be like the next story now, because like the Steele dossier is falling apart and doesn't make any sense anymore. So is this like the next angle you think that they're going to try to go for?
Yeah. And it's funny, that's a Steele dossier. I think that is one of the biggest injustices that the country has ever experienced. I mean, this whole this whole fact that the DNC paid an opposition research firm, which then hired Christopher Steele, which then gathered bad information on Donald Trump from Russians in the government to use as dirt on Donald Trump. I mean, it's basically tantamount to treason. The reason I say that is because we now have proof that members in the DOJ and FBI, such as Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and the DOJ like Bruce Orr and his wife Nellie Orr, they use this false information to try to deny the presidential elect from becoming president. And not only him, but by extension, over the 50 million people who actually voted for Trump.
Yeah, so I'm like looking at Vox News and some other, sort of mainstream news outlets, and they're saying that these operatives from Russia allegedly stoked fears of voter fraud and created this idea that, you know, the Democrats were going to engage in voter fraud. So it's like, I wonder, just like, did they have some sort of playbook, or is this just like an assumption that they were making? Or, you know, it's I'm having a hard time like sussing all this out, along with the fact that it seems like they were really promoting like racial tension too, with these, like, you know, black lives matter. They use blue lives matter and all lives matter. So they were just like hitting people from all angles too.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. It all comes back to just, it wasn't about colluding to make someone president. It was about trying to screw with America's heads, and they're doing a good job. I mean, we have a Mueller investigation going on that has already spent millions of dollars into investigation that lacks any foundation, whose whole premise was predicated on a false dossier paid for by the Clintons. I don't see how we are not a laughingstock of the world. Putin's probably laughing about this. All the millions of dollars we are spending chasing this false conspiracy that Trump is this horrible. You know, okay, I got to back up here a little bit. What's really interesting and funny is that people always say Trump is so stupid. He's such an idiot. Yet they're basically saying he colluded with Russia, which would kind of make him a mastermind since his hands are completely clean of it. So at the same time they're saying he's dumb, they're basically indicating that he's a genius because he was able to collude with another country, a major country, and yet his hands are clean. His staff might be dirty, but he himself is clean. So it kind of contradicts their own opinion.
Yeah, it seems like I did find the document. It's like 37 pages, and it doesn't say anything about Trump or the Trump administration at all, like saying any of the collusion. So I don't know if Mueller's just going to like imply that maybe Trump, you know, benefited from this because he won. You know, if they're going to try to say that like the Instagram and Twitter and Facebook was enough to push the Trump votes over the edge. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see if Hillary Clinton responds to this at all.
Yeah. Actually, I want to ask your opinion on something. I read this. A few people commented. I'm kind of ambivalent on it. I don't really see it, but I guess I'm not sure. There is this theory going around that basically part of the whole Mueller investigation into Trump is broadened. It's more of an investigation into the 2016 election. And that means that he is going to be investigating someone like Hillary Clinton. So his investigation is not just into the Trump administration and whether there was Russia collusion, but to the Clintons and basically their pay-for-play scheme. And to that regard, she then and Bill Clinton could be indicted. Now, I don't.
It's funny, you know? Yeah. As I was starting to look at this, I'm like, this kind of opens the door to the whole era between 2014 to 2016. I mean, it doesn't specifically implicate anyone here in the United States, but you're right, it opens up the whole investigation into the election itself. So you're right, it does seem to open a door where they could say, okay, well, we need to look into fraud in this election in general. And then, yeah, it could. I mean, obviously, the most obvious conclusion is to be looking at the Democratic Party with the DNC fraud lawsuit that's still going forward. You know, it's not getting any mainstream news at all, but the appeal was overturned, and then it is going to go forward in court. So who knows? Maybe at some point, the evidence of DNC election fraud and election tampering could get into that. And like one of the viewers was posting about all of the, you know, dead people who are voting in the election. It could open it up. I mean, I personally don't trust Mueller either, but it doesn't seem like he's specifically going after Trump right now. It looks like it's more about the election in general.
Yeah, and I remember covering, I think a month ago, I forgot, I think a representative, I think Matt Gaetz, he basically made a comment on Fox News that we're going to be sending Hillary Clinton's cellmate, I'm with her t-shirt. So apparently there is a push to get another investigation, an independent investigation into the Clinton Foundation, because apparently more information is being dug up that indicates a pay-to-play scheme. So hopefully that happens, because if there's anyone that deserves to be in prison, it's the Clintons. And they've been getting away with it for like 30 years. I mean, Chinagate, Cattlegate, Philogate, Emo, Benghazi, just there's too much smoke there to not be fire.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, if there are people within the Trump administration who will try to go forward with investigating the elections. It can start out, like you said, under this guise of we need to look at these Russian troll farms, and then we can start to look into pay to play, and like David Brock, Media Matters, like they're massive troll farms. And then also, Soros and his money going in to the U.S. elections. I mean, it looks like from the document that you pulled up, there is like one part that's technically illegal, right? And everything else is just kind of, not acceptable. I don't know how to, like, what they're looking for exactly.
Yeah, like basically later in the indictment, it admits that they basically stole people's social security accounts. I mean, so they did break the law, but it's almost like, now that I think about it, it's almost like the first count, the whole conspiracy to defraud the U.S., which delineates the whole trolling notion. It's almost like he added that in there just to try to satisfy some of the public outcry that there was indeed collusion, or at the very least, there was an attempt by Russia to hack our election. It's almost like it was just put in there as confirmation that the Russians did try something. It doesn't indicate Trump was colluding with them, but there was something there. And at the same time, it could basically garner more support from the public now to continue investigation. I'm not sure if that's true. That just kind of popped in my mind right now.
Yeah, and I also wonder if this is gonna like bait Democrats at all. Like I don't know if, like, I'm confused. Like if the audience, if you get a chance, like read the article and like read the counts and like see what is going on here. If this is bait, or if it's just like another distraction that'll be in the news for a few days or a few weeks, or if it'll get dragged out like the Steele dossier.
Yeah, there's like 3 more I'm going to go over, and then we'll pretty much be done with that. So
sounds good. Hey, did you notice you got a little super chat?
Yeah, Janice, she's my patron, so I noticed that a little bit ago. Thank you, Janice. You're always so kind. Oh yeah, I forgot I was going to say, back with that whole this part, Bernie Sanders, how they wanted either Sanders or then candidate Trump. I think the reason is quite obvious. It's because Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump were the only 2 candidates that basically said they don't want to go to war with Russia. I mean, Hillary Clinton flat out said pretty much that if Russia flies over a safe zone in Syria, we will shoot them down. John McCain, he wants to go to war because he hates Russia. He wants to perpetuate the funding of the military-industrial complex. Marco Rubio, he's anti-Russia. Ted Cruz, he's kind of no, I don't know. Ted Cruz, he appeared to be, I guess I don't know what Ted Cruz is doing, but for the most part, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, they were anti-war. So I would understand why Russia wants one of them in office. I mean, what better way to prevent a country that outspends them 10-1 in military like we do with Russia to, I guess, not go to war with Russia.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, granted, I know Clinton was involved with, Uranium One with the State Department and, giving 20% of American uranium to Rosatom. But yeah, at the same time, she's, always hungry for the next war, whereas Trump and Sanders weren't saying anything like that.
Yeah. So here is what, I guess I'll just kind of read this. Here are some of the advertisements that these Russian trolls did. These are the advertisements that the FBI and Mueller just appear must be just horrible, horrible things to do. I mean, God, wow. A great number of Black people supporting us say that Hillary Clinton is not my president. I say no to Hillary Clinton. I say no to manipulation. Join our Hillary Clinton for prison, 2016. Donald wants to defeat terrorism. Hillary wants to sponsor it. Vote Republican, vote Trump, and support the Second Amendment. Hillary Clinton doesn't deserve the black vote. Trump is our only hope for a better future. Never Hillary. Hillary for prison. Hillary for prison. Hillary for prison. Hillary for prison. Ohio wants Hillary for prison. Yeah, that's true. Hillary Clinton has already committed voter fraud during the Democratic Iowa caucus. We cannot trust Hillary to take care of our veterans. Among all the candidates, Donald Trump is the one and only one who can defend the police from terrorists. Hillary is a Satan, and her crimes and lies had proved just how evil she is. So apparently, Robert Mueller thinks that these statements are so damaging to these meek-minded, these weak, ignorant public that are called Americans, that these slogans can turn 2 states that have been blue for the last 28 years into red. No, I shouldn't say that. I mean, because Mueller didn't say that in the indictment, but that's what the media is trying to indicate.
Yeah, that's some like Instagram posts, and Hillary for prison is like enough to sway entire states. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like CNN is going to start saying that.
Yep. So 51, starting in approximately June 2016, defendants and their co-conspirators organized and coordinated political rallies in the United States. To conceal the fact that they were based in Russia, defendants and their co-conspirators promoted these rallies while pretending to be U.S. grassroots activists who were located in the U.S. but unable to meet or participate in person. Defendants and their co-conspirators did not register as foreign agents with the U.S. Department of Justice. So the 2 main things I have there is the first one. This is exactly what David Brock and George Soros did during when Trump was in, I think it was Arizona. He basically they promoted. God, I can't remember their company website they had, but basically they got a bunch of protesters holding Mexican flags and attacking Trump outside his rally, and that was basically supported by George Soros and David Brock. So if that is a crime according to this indictment, then by logical extension, David Brock and George Soros should be receiving an indictment as well. However, there's not even investigation into them, which is a sad, sad abuse of authority. It's a sad miscarriage of justice.
I just did a video about Soros, and people are complaining. In Missouri, he just dumped like $300,000 into a super local election. And like, if you put that much money into a local election, like you've totally meddled in that entire election. But it's like he can do that through, super PACs, and then a super PAC can give it to another PAC, and then that's how they can spend that money locally. So yeah, we're talking about Instagram photos here versus dumping in $300,000 into a U.S. election.
Right. Yeah. And then for the end of number 51, defendants and their co-conspirators did not register as foreign agents with the U.S. Department of Justice. And that goes back to what I was saying with the Podesta brothers, because they didn't register as foreign agents either in their company. So I don't understand. I mean, I guess I'm hopeful. Maybe it's possible that they may be indicted in the future for either Uranium One or for money laundering. I mean, I'm sure the hodgepodge of reasons are extensive, but it's just, these are all clear prerequisites for a criminal charge. And if these people are being charged with these crimes, and we know George Soros, David Brock, and Podestas are also guilty of these crimes, then in order for this to not be a miscarriage of justice, those people need to be indicted.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like you said, if this could open up, a can of worms to the Trump administration or, anyone, Mueller, whoever, starting to go after people who aren't registering as foreign agents, let's get a list going, Yeah.
And the last one here, number 58. In order to avoid detection and impede investigation by U.S. authorities of defendants' operations, defendants and their co-conspirators deleted and destroyed data, including emails, social media accounts, and other evidence of their activities. That is Hillary Clinton during her email investigation. She completely destroyed her phone. She deleted 33,000 emails that were subpoenaed I mean, everything in this paragraph Hillary Clinton did during the email investigation, yet nothing was wrong with that. James Comey said there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh wow, that mirrors that exactly, you know, deleted, destroyed data, including emails, social media accounts. You know,
Yep.
how can you read that and not be thinking about the election and the Clintons and, you know, all the Blackberries and everything that she did as Secretary of State and what the State Department did, and all those Democrats, you know, connected with the Owan brothers and the Blackberries, you know, that's all of that is out there. So, you know, I don't know. If anything else, we're just, you and I are going over and seeing the connections here to what was going on in the, you know, in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's basically what I have for the indictment. Those in the chat, I talked to Holly. We're going to end this at 8. I don't know if you can tell, but I look like the Grim Reaper's younger brother. So I kind of don't feel well. So in case you can't tell. So we're going to end it at 8. But Holly, since we have 15 minutes, what should we talk about? What articles do you have?
So let's see what we have here. So I'm going to pull up what we had talked about earlier. We had kind of put out a couple of articles that we thought might be good to talk about. I mean, there's some Mitt Romney wants to run for Senate, right? So
Yeah.
we can just like end that on a light note here. So yeah, let me see what I have here. So Mitt Romney has been like bashing Trump lately, and he is hitting the campaign trail. He is launching a Utah Senate campaign, and he's just basically all he's doing is just going after President Trump. And he's been putting out Facebook campaign videos, and he's like, you know, we got to end this message of exclusion to immigrants, and he wants to run for the outgoing Republican Senator Orrin Hatch's seat. So what do you think about that, Piper?
Mitt Romney, it appears that him and Trump, they have like a love-hate relationship. I mean, first Trump endorsed him in 2012, they were best friends. And then 2016, they hate each other. And then when he was considered Secretary of State nomination, they loved each other. And now he is once more denigrating Donald Trump. And I don't know, I want a grassroots movement throughout the country. I mean, I want Austin Peterson, for example, to win in Missouri. And having someone like Mitt Romney, who is purely establishment, I mean, his connections, but I have to give him, the guy is smart just based on his academic career. I mean, he's a lawyer and he's also has a master's in business. He was a governor, so he has experience in politics and business and stuff, but I don't think we need any more establishment icons trying to run this country, because I'm sure his political proclivities are going to align with neoconservative policies, such as feeding the military-industrial complex, trying to go to war overseas, putting troops in Syria, and all those things that I vehemently disagree with.
Yeah, I guess like last year or the year before, Romney was trying to run as Trump's Secretary of State. You know, like he was trying to be all buddy with him, as you said. And yeah, he used to be the governor of Massachusetts. And Massachusetts is like one of the most like liberal corporate states in the nation. So he was like one of the first Republicans in a long time. And yeah, like a business Republican, but let's not forget he was the one that put forward Romney Care in Massachusetts, which became the basis for Obamacare. So, you know, that's where it kind of becomes hard for you to tell, you know, what's Republican and what's Democrat at that point, because Romney put forward Romney Care Massachusetts, and, you know, Massachusetts being a liberal state was like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. Let's all sign up for it. And then that became the basis for Obamacare. And we all know that, you know, Obamacare is only about helping out the insurance companies.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, too, because I think a lot of people think Romney is conservative, but his whole history, he was more of a moderate. I mean, he really wasn't conservative at all. I watched his debate. Yes, I am a political junkie. I watched his debate with Ted Kennedy like in 1980. And I mean, he is more moderate in his views. He is for, you know, government spending increase, in 2012 when he was running, he said he wasn't going to lower taxes at all. He's basically going to lower taxes for just the middle class, but keep them high in the rich. And like you said, Romney Care, which was the basis, the precursor for Obamacare. So he really doesn't. He's more of a moderate than a conservative, but he is running against Orrin Hatch, which I don't know if Orrin Hatch is retiring or if he's actually going to challenge Orrin Hatch. I don't know. Do you know that at all?
I think Orrin Hatch is on his way out finally. So I think Romney is like the biggest contender, but you're absolutely right about Romney, you know, being like a moderate, because there's no way in heck that Massachusetts would have ever supported anyone who was even mildly conservative. Like Massachusetts has like massive spending, you know, it's they're in from what I've seen, like they could be like Connecticut or Illinois soon. They could be the ones entering like junk bond status, or, you know, just the amount of spending that they have over there. And Mitt Romney was part of that. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I do like seeing a lot of these corporate elite figures on their way out of Congress, like Jeff Flake, if Orrin Hatch gets out. The only problem I have is I don't want these congressional corporatists, these plutocrats, to be replaced by younger plutocrats. I think we actually now have a chance to completely refill Congress up with grassroots movement, either third party or like conservative, or, you know, things of that nature. And the possibility is there, but there's just so much funding from corporations to these corporatists, and it's hard. I think Mitt Romney actually has a good chance of winning, especially if Orrin Hatch is indeed retiring. If he's retiring, I think it's going to be actually a very close run against whoever Mitt Romney's running against.
Yeah, I think Mitt Romney is, I don't know, he went to Brigham Young University or something, so he might be Mormon, and, you know, Utah is Mormon country. So yeah, I think you're right. I think he's going to go in being like one of those Republicans that Trump bashes, and my guess is that he'll probably get in. So
yeah. Alrighty though, I think that's good to call it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I hope you feel better. And so you've got some hopefully you've got some new projects in the works, and hopefully we'll be doing some more shows together on the regular. It's funny, and my audience asks, like, when are we going to start doing shows again, all the time. So
yeah, they're fun. They're good. Hopefully I can, I was telling Holly this earlier. Hopefully I really know I shouldn't say this, but I'm trying to make something more regular basically with her. So it's kind of on me though. So hopefully what I'm doing in my personal life works out. If so, we can do that every other week, which would be nice. But yeah,
we'll figure it out. So thanks everyone. Make sure you share the video and all that. So
all right. Holly, again, thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot.
See you guys.